including, and I quote, "Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath, he is also a profound threat to the international order." And if he did not apologize, will the Prime Minister do so now on his behalf?
Mr. Speaker, there will be many issues on which the Leader of the Opposition and I...
The inauguration of Donald Trump was a historic moment, but for Keir Starmer, it was more like a political earthquake.
From this.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around.
It's time for Keir Starmer to pay the price for his anti-Trump remarks made in the past.
To America, but Donald Trump has seen fit not to invite Sir Keir Starlin, no doubt because of his views on Donald Trump, no doubt because of David Lammy's sayings on Donald Trump, maybe indeed because of Sadiq Khan's protestations about what a horrible man.
Trump's decision to leave Starmer off the guest list for his inauguration has not only humiliated Starmer, but has also sparked major speculations across the globe.
Well, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has congratulated Donald Trump on his inauguration in a video message which lacked one thing: enthusiasm.
On behalf of His Majesty's Government and the United Kingdom, I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States. For centuries, the relationship between our two nations has been one of collaboration, cooperation.
The inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States didn't just make headlines across the globe. It seems to have rattled UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's, and his distressed reaction is raising eyebrows.
Congratulation video. He wasn't invited to the inauguration, and there are reports that the Prime Minister will be at the back of the queue for a visit to the White House and will have to, quote, eat humble pie before receiving an invitation. Darren, why is Keir Starmer just so on the back burner with Donald Trump?
I mean, you can tell, can't you, between those two videos that you just played there, the enthusiasm when he's actually bashing Donald Trump compared to the enthusiasm when he's there saying congratulations on winning the presidency.
Instead of the warm, heartfelt tone one might expect from a leader of a nation historically allied with the United States, Starmer's words came off as nothing more than a superficial gesture and a reluctant nod to reality. He seemed undeniably nervous and shaken to his core.
Democracy bandwagon, all while calling Donald Trump all the names under the sun. You know, he is no Democrat. So the idea that actually Donald Trump is some kind of fascist, which is what some members of his cabinet have alleged, is absolutely absurd. He actually said, no way would I want Trump over for dinner.
Let's not forget that just a few years ago, Starmer was on the front lines of anti-Trump rhetoric, playing to the crowd with comments designed to stoke fears. Back then, Starmer wasn't shy about expressing his distaste for Trump. Little did he know that he had to pay the price later.
Would probably rather listen to Kamala Harris's hyena-like cackle on loop over 12 hours than spend even 1 minute over a dinner table with that boring bank clerk of charisma. You know, it's absolutely absurd. He is nothing more than a lawyer, a bureaucrat, a technocrat, trying to take on a fake personality without even bothering to do any of the actual real governing work.
The British public knows that Starmer was not a fan of Trump when he was in power. With Trump's return to the White House, Starmer finds himself in an awkward position, caught between his previous condemnation of the man and the reality of dealing with an administration he can't afford to completely alienate. The irony of the situation is hard to miss. While Starmer's message is lackluster at best, other political figures in the UK, like the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, are outright hostile to Trump's return.
Done with him, the better. I tell you what, Donald J. Trump, if he makes his life a misery, I will personally be clapping him from the sidelines.
Oh, you will be there celebrating, I can imagine. Darren, it's all you. That would be your big moment. Meanwhile, we've got to talk about Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. He's now claiming that Trump's return brings, quote, a march of fascism and marks a perilous moment for Western civilization.
The chilling reality is that Starmer seems content to play the role of bureaucracy rather than a true leader. He continues to speak in vague, diplomatic terms, offering nothing more than empty promises of unity and cooperation with the US. Meanwhile, the UK faces pressing issues like skyrocketing living costs, a crumbling NHS, rising crime rates, and the housing crisis. Starmer's tepid response to these crises, like his hesitant response to Trump's inauguration, signals a leader who is more interested in playing it safe than actually solving problems. This lack of conviction doesn't just affect the political class, it has a real, tangible impact on the everyday citizen. As people across the UK struggle to make ends meet, they see a Prime Minister who is more concerned about being liked than about making tough, necessary decisions.
As is the entire media today, because it is an absolute whopper of a news day, somehow combining the inauguration of Donald Trump with that sensational development in the Southport murder trial. Very unexpected that Axel Rudikabana pleaded guilty to pretty much everything, if not everything, that he was charged with. I must say that there will be a number of conspiracy.
While all eyes are on Trump's return to power, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing a barrage of allegations regarding cover-ups and catastrophic failures in handling crucial domestic issues, including the murder of 3 girls in Southport. For Starmer, it seems like everything is starting to unravel, as he can't even offer a straightforward congratulations to Trump without being weighed down by his own political baggage. The awkwardness in Starmer's message to the newly inaugurated president is almost palpable. It's not just the lack of enthusiasm for Trump that's the issue, it's that Starmer is so tied up in the fallout of his own failures that he's unable to focus on what truly matters for the UK. This lack of leadership has left many asking, what exactly is Starmer doing to earn the respect?
And catastrophic failures of the so-called Prevent program, that all this is coming out on the day that Donald Trump is.
Well, let's just say it very quickly before we get into the inauguration. This piece of scum, Axel Rudikabana, got referred to the government's counter-terrorism group, Prevent, several times. Nobody did anything. He's admitted this afternoon, this agent, to stabbing 3 young children to death in Southport. There will be many people with an opinion, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't want to make today about Starmer. You could argue that has been released for that reason. And then I'm watching in farcical moments today on several news outlets.
The pressure is mounting as the details of the Southport murder tragedy unfolded. It's impossible to ignore the questions being raised about the incompetence of those in charge. The country grapples with this news in Southport. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's hypocritical reaction to Trump's inauguration feels like an afterthought. What's truly bizarre is how perfectly this moment reflects Starmer's inability to take a stand when it matters most. While the UK grapples with serious issues like failing counter-terrorism strategies and growing public distrust, Starmer remains too busy trying to play it safe with bland political pleasantries and double standards.
Good luck with your inauguration, President Trump. I look forward to our special relationship maintaining itself for years to come. I said it as a joke. Alex Phillips went to the inauguration. Sir Keir Starmer didn't get invited. Liz Truss is at the inauguration. Donald Trump, Starmer didn't get invited. I think this man is, fresh from sending people to help Kamala Harris lose, that's going to get right under the Trump skin. I just think he's an inconsequential human being, increasingly.
The delusional Prime Minister who seems tone deaf to tackle the tough issues head on. While Trump is unapologetically bold, tackling global issues with unfiltered conviction, Starmer continues to make blunders, lack accountability, and pander to the political elite, offering nothing but higher taxes and low growth. The British public outrage will undoubtedly start looking elsewhere for someone with the courage to make the tough decisions and avoid leadership failures.
But I don't think that either Donald Trump or his inner circle have any time or respect for Keir Starmer. He embodies everything that they hate.
And can I just say, I think there's all this talk about this special relationship, and there was do you remember when even Theresa May, when he first won in 2016, she was inside the White House as the first foreign leader within 7 days. I think he'll be at the back of the queue. I think that speaks volumes, and I think you could argue that Donald Trump is somebody who holds a grudge or whatever, but Starmer, a complete embarrassment.
Starmer's leadership continues to limp along, too concerned with political optics to even make a dent in the real issues facing the country. While Trump is shaking up the political landscape and drawing the attention of millions, Starmer's message remains as empty as ever. Just a weak plea for cooperation with no real substance.
And stupid, idiotic Keir Starmer is sat in the middle of our country worrying about... Well, look, I mean, somebody said to me in the makeup room today, you know, how do you respect a man who still won't agree to a national inquiry into rape gangs who have been doing what they've been doing for 20 years in this country? Donald Trump, I can tell you categorically, would have instigated a national inquiry into those rape gangs within 5 minutes of becoming Prime Minister. That doesn't make him a perfect human being, but it tells me he understands what people want, Isabel.
Trump is a man who doesn't forget the slightest. He doesn't forget those who've stood in his way. Keir Starmer has been openly critical of Trump for years. It's no surprise that Trump isn't eager to roll out the red carpet for him. This isn't just about personal grudges. Starmer's ineffective, wishy-washy approach couldn't be more apparent before. While Trump's leadership resonates with millions who want someone who's willing to make critical decisions, Starmer has proven himself to be a figure of hesitation and indecision. The UK needs a leader who isn't afraid to face difficult challenges head-on, not someone who's constantly playing catch-up.
The Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary met him in September. Did the Foreign Secretary take that opportunity to apologise for making derogatory and scatological references, including, and I quote, "Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, he is also a profound threat to the international order. And if he did not apologise, will the Prime Minister do so now on his behalf?"
It's clear that Keir Starmer has been caught off guard by Kemi Badenoch's razor-sharp question that exposed a glaring contradiction. Had the Foreign Secretary used their September meeting to apologise for the offensive, over-the-top comments once hurled at President Trump? And if not, would Starmer himself step up and own that apology?
On which the Leader of the Opposition and I disagree, but there will be issues that do unite this House on national security and Ukraine, and I do look forward to working closely with her on that, and I will provide her with the information that she needs to discharge her duties. That's the right thing for the country, and it's far more important than party politics. And the Foreign Secretary and I did meet President-elect Trump just a few weeks ago for dinner for about a couple of hours, and we discussed...
Badenoch wasn't holding back. She quoted the outrageous remarks branding Trump as a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath and a profound threat to the international order. How could Starmer, who endlessly preaches diplomacy and respect on the international stage, reconcile these vile insults with his supposed commitment to fostering strong alliances?
Distance himself from the remarks made by the Foreign Secretary, and I'm very sure that President Trump will soon be calling to thank him for sending all of those North London Labour activists to campaign for his opponent. Given that most of his cabinet signed a motion to ban President Trump from addressing Parliament, will the Prime Minister show that he and his government can be more than student politicians by asking the Speaker to extend...
It's not far-fetched to think that Trump, with his influence and unrelenting determination, could make Starmer's tenure a living nightmare if he decided to. This wouldn't just be a personal clash between two politicians. If Trump were to use his sway to push back against Starmer's government, the fallout could ripple across the entire UK. Not only trade negotiations, but diplomatic relations would also be strained. And guess who pays the price for Starmer's reckless words? The everyday British citizens, already burdened by rising costs and uncertainty.
Mr. Speaker, we live in probably a more volatile world than we've lived in for many decades. It is absolutely crucial that we have a strong relationship, that strong special relationship forged in difficult circumstances between the US and the UK. We will continue to work, as we have done in the 4 months in government, on issues of security, our economy and global conflict.
Mr. Speaker, he does not answer the questions, just read the lines the officials have prepared for him.
Keir Starmer isn't able to answer important questions. Since Trump's rise to power, he has been consistently critical of Trump and his policies. He distanced himself from Trump's rhetoric, often referring to him as a divisive and dangerous figure. In 2016, Starmer spoke out against Trump's proposed Muslim travel ban, and more recently, he has condemned Trump's approach to issues like race relations, immigration, and climate change. There's no way Starmer can defend himself from what's coming as a result of it.
He needs to look after the special relationship. The US is our single biggest trade partner. Given the risk of increased tariffs on UK exports, which threaten our manufacturing sector, will the Prime Minister commit now to continue the negotiations on our free trade agreement with the US, which the Biden administration cancelled when they came into office?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course we will discuss issues of our economy with the President.
Starmer's stance on Trump can be seen as an extension of his broader approach to US-UK relations. He often seems reluctant to engage with world leaders who do not align with his left-wing ideological values, especially when those leaders have controversial reputations, but it has led him to accusations of short-sightedness in terms of geopolitics. The UK, as a major global power, needs leaders who can both engage in principled diplomacy and navigate complex relationships with major global players. This is something Starmer seems hesitant to embrace when it comes to Trump.
But when it comes to the economy, what we've done with our budget is to fix the foundations after 14 years of failure. Return to economic stability of the £23 million black hole. We've protected the pay slips of working people. We've done the single biggest investment in our country for a generation in the NHS, in schools and homes. We've given a pay rise to the 3 million lowest paid. If she's a...
Keir Starmer waxing lyrical about economic stability and grand investments. But let's not forget, this so-called stability is built on shaky foundations. Same excuses of a £22 million deficit spun as a win and a few scattered pay raises to cover their tracks. Then he claims about NHS and schools, but is it enough to fix the damage? Starmer's words may sound grand, but it's the same tired playbook. Big talk, little action.
He needs to realize that we in this country rely on our single biggest trade partner. President Trump is also right to argue that Europe needs to increase its defense spending. The last Conservative government committed to raising defense spending to 2.5% by 2030. Will the Prime Minister finally match this commitment?
Mr. Speaker, there is no more important duty than keeping the...
One thing is clear, the UK needs to remain competitive on the global stage, and for that, we need the US on our side, no matter who sits in the Oval Office.
Well, I would remind the last time 2.5 was met was under the last Labour government. 14 years, and they never did it once. Last year, the NAO identified a £17 billion black hole in the MOD finances. The former Defence Secretary said the previous government hollowed out the armed forces, and the plan they put forward at the election was pure fantasy.
On the other hand, Starmer is clearly more concerned about his own image than the long-term well-being of the UK. His stance on Trump might have worse effects on the UK's global standing.
Make that commitment, and yet the world is getting more dangerous. His Chancellors Budget did not even mention defence. The Chancellors Budget last week was a copy and paste of Bidenomics. It turns out that a high spending, high borrowing, high inflation approach is less popular than she may have thought. May I suggest he now urge her to change course, or is he determined to be a one-term leader?
Prime Minister!
It seems that Starmer's problem isn't just that he disagrees with Trump, it's that his approach to foreign diplomacy is completely shaped by his need to appease his party's left-wing factions. Instead of focusing on the UK's strategic interests, Starmer has spent most of his time on a virtue-signalling mission, attempting to win over activists within the Labour Party by denouncing Trump.
Speaker, we have heard him repeat the lines on the television, fixing the foundations and so on. But what does he say, over and over again, but what does he say to farmers who are facing uncertainty about their futures as a result of the increased taxes announced by the Chancellor? I am very clear that we would reverse Labour's cruel family farms tax. What can he say now to reassure the farming community?
He's practically made Trump a bogeyman to rally his base, even if it means wasting the opportunity to meaningfully engage with one of the world's most important leaders.
Look, I think there's actually a real opportunity here for the UK to set a new course. I think the Labour government have probably made that about as difficult as they could possibly have done with some of the things that people like David Lammy have been saying about Donald Trump over the last few years, things like Sadiq Khan have been saying about him as well. I think, obviously that's quite difficult, but we have a really strong historic relationship with the United States, whether that comes to intelligence sharing, whether it comes to our defence relationship, whether it comes to our economic relationship. And I think actually a bit of dynamism in the world economy is what we need to see at the moment.
From the CV lying scandal to the cronyism that's rife within his ranks, it's impossible to take Starmer seriously as a leader. His track record is marred by double standards and hypocrisy at every turn.
In the UK, they inherited the fastest growing economy in the G7. Now it's a flatlining economy. They inherited one with inflation down at 2%. That's already crept back up with predictions it's going to go further. And obviously that massive jobs tax, absolutely hammering businesses and employees and people looking for jobs here in the UK. Totally the opposite of what is happening in America. So I hope our government will learn some of those lessons about that positive can-do approach that President Trump is going to bring to the White House.
The UK economy is flatlining, inflation is creeping back up with predictions of even worse to come, and their massive jobs tax is hammering businesses, employees and job seekers alike. It's like watching a sinking ship, and unfortunately, if Starmer takes the reins, we'd all be going down with it. We need a leader who can bring people together, not someone who's constantly dividing the nation with hypocrisy and deflection.
Majority committee of Labour MPs, right, the Treasury Select Committee, have come out and said, actually, the Office of Value for Money, they can't see what value it has, and it's just costing money. I mean, it's just absolutely bananas. We've ended up in this situation where the Labour Party are bringing forwards all of these sort of big ideas, but actually, all we're seeing is it costing everybody an absolute fortune. And that's the danger, I think, of what we've seen with the Labour Party. There's a lot of things which were announced, but where is the actual meat in this? They're totally the opposite.
Now, the British public is not willing to have a leader who doesn't step up and tackle the country's problems head on. He's more interested in playing the political game than actually leading. He's too soft to challenge his party's radical elements, too busy chasing headlines.
To what you see from President Trump in America at the moment. And I think that's going to be a real contrast, actually. People seeing a government which is really prepared to act in their national interests on one side in the United States, compared to what this Labour government's doing here in the UK, which is clearly just undermining us at every turn, whether it comes to those issues around the economy or what you've just been talking to your previous contributor about around those issues around grooming gangs.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course,
Keir Starmer is rattled by Trump's victory, throwing Labour into a frenzy of uncertainty. With cracks forming in their strategy, the party's crisis deepens under mounting pressure.
It does feel that Darren Jones is in some form of very weirdly abusive relationship with the rest of the Labour Party at the moment, sent out on air to try and defend the utterly indefensible. I mean, you're quite right, Mike. The idea that you can... the truth is that these people were paying their tax on their UK income, right? Any money they made in the UK, they were paying it, right? What the Labour Party said is you must pay tax on any income you earn from anywhere in the world here in the UK. Well, they said, well, actually, no, we won't do that. Instead of standing strong in the face of crises, he hides behind vague promises and half-baked policies, never offering real solutions. His government would be one of incompetence, where every decision is either a delay, a deflection, or a failed attempt at fixing what's broken. Raise a tax which actually costs us more money. I mean, what sort of government would do that? Actually harming our public services, right, in order to pursue a political, ideological objective. I mean, that has got the Labour Party written right through it. And I think whether it comes to that or so many of these other changes they've brought in, they need to reverse ferret as quickly as possible, because, whether it comes to that or whether it comes to things like the business tax reliefs they're absolutely going to hammer our farmers with.
Before Trump's win, Starmerism was at its peak as he was vocal about Trump's failure, claiming that his leadership was dangerous for global stability. Now Starmer is trying to pivot and maintain friendly ties, but it seems as if it's already too late to repair the damage he has done to the UK-US relationship. Trump's victory not only sends shockwaves across the globe, but also leaves Keir Starmer scrambling to hold his ground. Starmer's reaction to Trump's win is a clear sign of the chaos within. One thing's certain, this inauguration has triggered more than just diplomatic jitters. British public are concerned if Starmer can handle the challenges in the UK-US relationship. If you love the UK and want to see the truth, please like and subscribe to show support.